Welcome to Kansas City Oasis. My name's Guy Niederhauser. I'm going to be your host and MC for this morning. This is Kansas City Oasis. For those of you who don't know, I think you know where you are, but we are here on Zoom. We are also streaming on Facebook Live, so you can invite some friends next time if you're interested. You can go back and watch this later on Facebook, and we'll be keeping this for posterity's sake via Zoom. So welcome. We have a program for you this morning we're very excited about. We have a musician, we have a member of our community here to share a story about themselves, and we have a guest speaker that we have some great enthusiasm about this morning. So welcome. Let me tell you a little bit about what we've got going on. So as obviously I think most of you know, Kansas City Oasis is a community of compassion and reason, celebrating the human experience. We've been meeting over Zoom now since basically the pandemic began, trying to take care of our community and look out for one another. We revolve around 5 core values. Those values are: people are more important than beliefs, reality is known through reason, human hands solve human problems, meaning comes from making a difference, and be accepting and be accepted. So if those are things that are important to you, this is a place for you. So today we're going to celebrate those 5 core values by hearing from some people that share those values. And we are going to get started with a musical guest, David Hakan, who has volunteered to join our AV team, a musician himself, a music teacher, lifelong music teacher, and now is getting more into his own playing himself and has agreed to play some music for us this morning. So David, are you ready to take it away?
I sure am.
Okay, everybody, please welcome David to the stage.
Thank you. Love being here. So I'm going to do my original songs this morning. And this first one, Galileo didn't invent the telescope, but he was the first to point it toward the heavens and find out how things really worked up there, which of course got him in lots of trouble and thrown in jail. At times in this song, I use the phrase, the eyes of Galileo, for the small and large lens of the telescope. This letter brings courage, my friend. It's hard in Barberini's jailhouse, I know. So I hid in this pail my very best pair of the eyes of Galileo. They can shackle your hands and feet, bar you from me. Your tormented heads hanging low. But at night when they're sleeping, you can travel the stars with the eyes of Galileo. Thinking's not free, my friend, it's just like the soil. The Duke's got the deed long ago. But I dream of a time when our words will be as free as the eyes of Galileo. I spoke with your daughter. She asked if your work is mathematics, some irreverent joke. She wonders if numbers are magic that fool the eyes of Galileo. I said a ship needs men pulling on ropes to set sail, but the one with a sextant they follow. We reach the shores of some new world, we'll thank the eyes of Galileo. Thinking's not free, my friend, it's just like the soil. Duke's got the deed long ago. But I dream of a time when our words will be as free as the eyes of Galileo. Some say that the devil works in your spyglass, but he points us to what is base and low. Your vision of heaven is just clearer than most through the eyes of Galileo. So don't be ashamed if they make you recant, for your truth will not into hiding go. The Even if I went blind, I would count myself blessed, have the eyes of Galileo. Thinking's not free, my friend, it's just like the soil. The Duke's got the deed on the gold, but I dream of a time when our words will be as free as the eyes of Galileo.
Woo! We got our own little James Taylor here in the house. All right, David, so happy to have you. Fantastic. That was a great start. Thank you so much. We usually start with 2 songs. You got another one. You're getting ready. Okay, fantastic.
So I retired from 28 years of teaching 2nd grade, and most people have no idea that all across our great country, teachers and their young students practice on a regular basis what to do if someone enters the school with a gun. This is called intruder drill. Word comes around, intruder drill today. My inner city 8-year-olds have a lot to say. But as they hide in the cloakroom, knee to knee, their silent faces look up at me. Sure, some just snicker, like at the tornado drill last week. Many have seen violence, not just on TV. They are my charge, my sacred duty, our chance for a brighter day. I know each one like my own child, and not a one of them could I save. Duke is tearing up, bracing for that broken door, anticipating what he's seen before. Jenny hides her face, ashamed to cry. She mouths the question to me, why? They are my charge, my sacred duty, our chance for a brighter day. I know each one like my own child, not a one of them could I save. So I tie a cord around the doorknob to hold the door. I ignore the flimsy glass as I block the window like before. This school was built in 1924. They never imagined needing more. They are my charge, my sacred duty, our chance for a brighter day. I know each one, my own child, not a one of them could I save.
Oh, David, thank you very much. Sacred Duty, that's a song for the times, no doubt. That goes quite well with what our main speaker this morning, Garrett's going to be talking about, what it means, what sacred duty looks like, what the word sacred means, what a word like faith means to a secular community like Oasis. So I think that the topics that we're going to be talking about this morning. So it's quite a song that was hitting a few people in the fields this morning. So thanks for getting us off to quite a start. You've got that's some beautiful musicianship. We're glad to have you here this morning. Glad you're a part of our AV team, and glad to have you part of the Oasis community here in Kansas City. So glad you're here.
That was a real treat for me.
Yeah, great. Glad to have you. So what else is up this morning? I've mentioned it a little bit here. Our main speaker this morning is Dr. Garrett Merriam. He is a PhD in philosophy from Rice University, going to be speaking on the topic of life, death, and secular faith. So I'll give a further introduction a little later on. And then our community moment this morning is from Will Manning, of course, one of our own long-serving volunteers on all sort of committees, working with AV, the setup crew, and of course, one of our regular MCs. So we'll be seeing him here in just a minute. Let me run through a few of our announcements for today. So apparently a bunch of y'all's parents were busy around the holidays back 9 months or so before you were born, because we have a lot of early September birthdays that I want to go through. Looks like Gary Webster is 50 years old today. Jana Parent's birthday is also today. David Krampus' birthday is Tuesday. JJ and Amy Varney's birthdays are Wednesday. On the 10th, we have Marge Long and Hannah Kime. Will, our community moment today, Will Manning and Peggy Hallstab are on the 11th. And that's it. Okay, so, woo! All right. A lot of early September birthdays, which goes along with the statistics. A lot of birthdays in these months. So, oh, and do I also see Roger Pick? Roger, when's your birthday? Don't be shy. Looks like it's sometime September. In the 4th. Oh, has it already happened? We just missed it?
That's all right. I don't think
all right. Everybody, Roger too. Everybody bombard Roger with happy birthdays. We're not going to
Medicare.
We'll give you a little. Everybody, give Roger some claps for a happy birthday. Yeah, there it is. All right, we love you, Roger. All right, we should have told us when you had the mic while you were up there giving your talk the other day. That would have been great. Okay, so we got some birthdays in, and again, if you got anything coming up, if you've had anything happening at work, if you've been re-employed after this pandemic, if you are seeing some family members, if things are going well with you, if life is working okay, tell us. We want to tell everybody. We want to celebrate you. We want to celebrate when your life is going well, because this is your community. These are your friends. Tell us so that we can tell everybody, so that we can celebrate. That's what we want to do. This is the time to do it. Birthdays are always a good time to do it, but if you've got an anniversary, if you've got anything else going on, send that up the chain so that we can announce it here on Sunday mornings. What else is going on? Let's see. So we have a meal train going right now. This is a program where we it's up on the announcements tab on the private page. So as many of you have heard, Ariston Cantrell, one of our youngest and most enthusiastic Oasis members, suffered a broken hip recently. So we've set up this meal train for people to sign up to help ease the burden on Ariston and the Cantrell family, their family unit during Ariston's recovery. So if you think you can provide some home cooked fare for 2 adults and 3 kids sometime in the next couple weeks, go over to the private page, click on the announcements there, and check out that calendar. See if there's a date sometime in there that would be easy for you to put a meal together and help out that family, part of our Oasis community, people that really help us out on a week-by-week basis. Your community appreciates you very much. I know Ariston, who's also helped out with that menu himself, would really appreciate it as well. So Ariston, if you're listening, we're thinking of you. And obviously we hope for a speedy recovery. I know that the surgery went well to get them back on track where it needs to be. So other than that, we have our usual after dinner Zoom chats are still happening Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. So if you're looking for some folks to talk to, if you're enjoying meeting people on Zoom Wednesday nights right here with this HTTP at 8 o'clock. Morning coffee Zoom chats. You can grab some coffee or tea or whatever you have at 7:30 a.m. It can be whatever you want. I don't know what's in your cup. at 7:30 a.m. You do you. We'll be here talking, chatting. We are reorganizing our committees. So if you're on the AV committee or the music committee or the speaker committee, all the things that help keep Oasis going, even though we're not meeting in person, all the committees that keep us going week by week, we want to get reorganized, make sure that we're still keeping this going and making this organization run. Because as you all know, we're volunteer based. This only works if everybody throws a human hand in to solve the human problems of keeping this 501c3 going. So again, look out for those emails if you're on a committee. If you're not on a committee and you would like to be, shoot an email up to one of our board members and we will get you going. Social events committee, the philanthropy committee, all of those need more folks. So what else is happening? The community groups are starting up again. I know a lot of people have regular community groups that they meet with even outside of community group season, but the community groups are sort of the bread and butter of what we do throughout the year. Small groups that meet up once a week, and just a lot of people are just shooting the shit, but we are putting a curriculum together for people to meet up over Zoom, even during quarantine, so we can stay connected throughout the week. So if you would like to be a community group host of a small group, the size really is up to the host, whatever they feel like they can handle. If you're interested in being a community group host, send Mark Dixon a message or any other board member. There are details on the private page right now. They're going to be starting September 13th and running through mid-November through the 15th, the week of the 15th. So check that out if that's something you'd be interested in. And with that, that's a lot of announcements. Sorry, that was a lot of talking. I think we're going to head into our community moment. And today, that's going to be Mr. Will Manning. Will, as I said, has been with us for a very long time. He's been involved up and down, all around all of our needs. He's been on the AV team. He's been with setup. He's been and still is one of our regular MCs. Will is always willing to help out, always willing to do something to get done what needs to get done. So our community moment speakers, we usually ask for 3 words to describe them and a warning label. So Will sent me his 3 words, and this is going to be fun for me. His 3 words are silly, cerebral, and sesquipedalian.
Pretty close.
Sesquipedalian.
Bam.
Yes, sesquipedalian. Yes, he is sesquipedalian. And I'm guessing we'll find out what that is. And his warning label is, oh, I didn't write it down. Will, take it away.
All right, I will. Let's see. This is very new for me. So I'm going to try to do a screen share here. Let's see if this works. All right, so I get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is science, everyone's favorite topic in school. Science is a bit sad right now if you're doing like research or science journalism. So I had no help on this. I can't take all the credit. So let's imagine Megan. Megan is a young biomedical researcher, and let's say she just graduated with her master's degree, and she's been applying for research positions all across the US and Canada. But she was one of the lucky ones. She got herself a job. There were more young researchers entering the workforce than the number of retiring researchers. Not only that, but federal spending for science research has been shrinking. In decades past, state schools provided considerable funding for laboratories as part of their science programs. But nowadays, researchers are expected to apply for grants and cover an increasing portion of their own salaries and expenses. And the field is more competitive than ever, and the temptations to follow the rules are also stronger than ever. And so now we're gonna do more imagining with Megan. So here comes Megan's first big tough decision. She could tackle a big ponderous question, a big expensive question, and it could take several years to complete. Or Megan could choose something more modest. Right now, every incentive that Megan has is to choose something relatively small. Megan faces huge pressures to get something published. It's not just enough to do science, but the world has to see Megan doing science through the lens of peer-reviewed scientific journals. And in case you're enjoying an adult beverage today, to make this a drinking game, just take a swig whenever I say peer-reviewed academic journals. All right. So the best way to get published right now is to nibble at the edges of what's already established science and find a novel yet statistically significant result and just repeat the process. High frequency publication strongly correlates with a career success for a researcher. If a researcher is willing to skirt the lines of quality, then finding something publishable is often like shooting fish in a barrel. And also, it's not truly doing anything but making science more muddled. All right, let's say Megan runs an experiment. She gets a nice collection of data, and each time she took a measurement, there was like 5 other things for her to measure. She has lots of possible numbers to analyze. If she didn't have a solid expectation of what she wanted to compare before she started, she could shop around for comparisons that don't quite line up with an expected distribution. Megan could essentially anomaly hunt within her own collective data. Once she finds something interesting, Megan could write up that paper, follow all the normal laws and protocols and language of science, act like she was looking for that specific variable the entire time, and her paper stands a pretty strong chance of getting peer-reviewed and published. Another variable that researchers have at their disposal is the duration of experiment. Let's say Megan was doing nightly analysis of the data and an experiment that she's running. One day, in the middle of her planned experiment, the numbers crossed a threshold for statistical significance. Megan could just stop right there, write it up, probably get published. Or opposite, she could let a different experiment run long if she's getting close to experiment or statistical significance, but not quite there yet. Well, that's the end of my story of Megan. I still got a lot more to say, but I'm going to end this little thing with Megan with a quote from a real person. So this is a quote from Ted Sanders. I personally spend a lot of time writing scientific Wikipedia articles because I believe that advances the cause of science far more than my professional academic articles. Ugh. And if that's not pretty damning, I don't know what else could be. All right, I will stop this little screen share there. Oh, one more thing. I have to credit my daughter for making all those pictures of Megan for me. She whipped that out last night. I couldn't think of more. All right. Now you get to see me face. All right. Back to talking. But there is some good news. Some scientists are participating in a system to help mitigate these types of poor science practices. There is a registry in the biosciences now enforced by law that requires researchers to lay out the specific roadmap for an experiment, removing the wiggle room and temptations that researchers might face to bend the results into publishable shape. Registries have another benefit as well. Most often, when an experiment fails to find something interesting, the researchers tend to just keep the negative results to themselves. This is what's commonly referred to as the Falvor Effect. Negative results can be very useful in science, but it's an uphill battle if you're attempting to get published. Negative results also might help another lab or research institution. It might stop them from probing at those same questions. But this registry practice is beginning to find its way into other disciplines of science too. Then there's what some people might call the reproducibility crisis. Reproducing other people's published science has been happening more often. Only in the last few years has attention been drawn to the fact that many published studies in top-tier scientific journals often fail replication. Many years ago, several teams of researchers started the reproducibility project. The initial project they took on was attempting to duplicate 100 published peer-reviewed studies that were in the field of psychology. Only around 40% they found supported the results of the initial study, and nearly universally the effect size was smaller. This isn't necessarily attributed to fraud. This is just some of the things I mentioned earlier and a couple more problems wrinkled in there. This reproducibility project has been spreading too. So it's not like this is this chorus I'm singing is at the tail end of the wake up that science has been going through. They're not over this problem, but it's still, we're still in the middle of it. Many scientists have also submitted spoof papers to journals just to see if they can sneak through the peer review process. One of the most famous spoof papers to get published was essentially prove the existence of VSP. Yeah, and I will throw a link on the private page to a podcast episode that does a great job of telling that story in much more detail than I would go to in here. Now I want to shift gears and end on the topics of science journalism. You know, journalism as a whole has had the economic rug pulled out from under it. Often the person hired to cover science stories doesn't have a strong science background, much less that highly specialized skill of translating dense jargon and like absorbing and spitting out the information in a way that the public can both care about and understand. Because, you know, you've all heard if it bleeds, it leads. Well, never more true than today. A science story still has to grab attention, have emotional impact. And science journalists are typically scouring the landscape looking for something to turn into an attention-grabbing and exciting read, whether or not it deserves that treatment at all. This problem is compounded when the scientists themselves are willing to speculate publicly on what the future of their work might lead to. You can imagine this is just playing into exactly what they want to make a big deal of their own work too. Many science journalists aren't even that picky, and they'll run to press with a commentary of any random credentialed science-like figure willing to assist them in telling a compelling story. So one of the reasons why I want to make this community moment is that because I see a lot of science being politicized, and sometimes some people might find a way to disbelieve the science that they already kind of want to disbelieve, and these kind of problems lead to what it takes to help people have less faith in science. All right, I want to wrap it up there. Expect to see a link for that podcast, maybe a couple other articles, if you're curious about hearing more about this topic from me. All right, thank you very much for listening. It's been my pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Will. Thank you very much. Those are, I've heard a lot about those issues of being able to replicate studies. And I mean, that's not having, like you said, having one study that shows a thing. That's not science. That's a one-off, right? We've got to be able to show it over and over again to be able to prove that it's, show that it's science and not just a one-time thing. And yeah, that doesn't happen very often. And man, that funding of scientific labs and research and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of issues that don't get talked about in sort of mainstream. It's all kind of academic issues. And I'm sure, Garrett, you've got plenty of history with those kind of issues, working at the doctoral level. That was my plan, was to teach at the PhD level, and then religious studies department started shrinking, and I was like, oh, I'm never going to find a job. And so I left it all behind. So be curious to hear some more about that. We could probably talk about it. Will, if you want to post in the private page, I'm sure there'll be plenty more questions about that. I know we have a lot of people with science backgrounds here at Oasis, so I'm sure we'd spark some great conversation there. So we're going to go into our 10-minute break here. We're going to start our breakout room. So if everybody wants to have some conversation here, we'll have some conversation with everybody, grab some more coffee, grab a bathroom break, and we'll be back here in about 10 minutes in the main room, and we'll see some more music and hear from our main speaker. Thanks, guys.
And let's just remember, if you stay in the main room, that you're still on the live stream. So keep it family friendly.
Julie, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, I wandered off, but what's up?
Well, I thought the other kind of live streams got more money. Thank you for getting my joke.
That's a new kind of Oasis fundraiser. All right.
Yeah.
Let's not elaborate, but okay.
I think everybody at Oasis got it. No.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Kevin and Lisa always had the most exotic backgrounds.
Oh, they've got elephants today.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of stuff today.
They should do a community moment on their backgrounds.
Yeah, no kidding.
Sarah, are you awake?
I was just reading how they're making candy corn fruit flavored, and I'm so excited I could barely stand it.
Fruit flavored?
Yeah, they're gonna make fruit flavored candy corn.
Oh, is pumpkin considered a fruit? I'm surprised they don't have pumpkin flavored. Pumpkin spice flavored.
These are purple in the
Oh.
picture. Blackberry cobbler.
Oh, that sounds good. Because candy corn just mostly tastes like sugar right now, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Which okay with me. I still have a stash of candy corn because I like it, and so I bought some, and then somebody else found out that I liked it, and so they bought me massive
Way
amounts.
too much. Yeah, way too much.
Kind of like everything was just a little too much all the time about everything.
Yeah. I like those little I usually get one bag a year of those ones with the little pumpkins in them.
Yeah, I have some pumpkin ones, and then I
The little pumpkins. Yeah.
yeah, they're delicious.
I got my bathroom mostly painted.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What color? That was the melon.
Gray. It's gray, and it's the color of this rug is the other color.
Oh, yeah. Like a royal blue.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's tea, a little more green, a little bit of green in it.
I still don't have a garage. If anybody knows a good foundation and concrete
Oh,
contractor who can do it this year, because it's looking like next year. They're not even
Oh.
answering me when I ask for a new date.
is it a separate? Did you get somebody separate for the concrete and somebody for the?
No,
Buildings, or
it's supposed
it's
to
all
be
one
one.
person?
It's supposed to be one person, but you've got to go with the international building standards, which means in this area, they have to go down 3 feet below the frost line.
Mhm.
So there is some excavating to do. But I've been under contract since last fall.
Did you pay
And
them
just-
anything?
Huh?
Did you pay them anything?
Yeah, you have to put a deposit down to get the date, which was April. And then the new date was August. And now when I ask, I don't even get an answer. Like, can you give me a new estimate?
Can you get your money back?
No, when I talked to them 3 weeks ago, they did offer to refund my deposit, but everyone I've called is in 2021 at
Oh,
least.
thanks.
And I was like, I would just be thrilled to get it at least this year.
Yeah. You're planning on parking in it, right? Once it's up?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a 2-car garage with some extra storage space because my house has no storage space.
Mhm.
Right now it's littler than usual because all my garage stuff's in the
Stuff
house.
is in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, if you guys think of a good contract, a good concrete company.
Well, it seems like you might as well just stick with them at this point because you're going to.
Right. And that's it. I have not asked for the refund because at this point, but I mean, a lot of this is not pandemic. This is too much bad scheduling.
Yeah.
They swear they do them in the order you contracted them. But
Yeah. I need some concrete work done, but I'm probably not going to mess. I mean, it's not, but I'll probably fix my driveway next year. Because there's like a band of gravel, like it's concrete, and then they've put like asphalt on top of it, or not the asphalt, but like that black sealer stuff. But then there's like, I don't know, 3 feet of gravel before the street, which I'm not exactly sure.
would that be a French drain maybe?
It's got a pipe under it. It's under the gravel is the.
It sounds like that might be what it is.
Oh, really?
Hey, Lisa, can you hear us? Lisa, you're muted. But I think you should do a community moment on all your backgrounds.
That would be Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin is all over it, man.
Yeah. You should do a community moment. Yeah, I've done a couple.
I can imagine what Kevin could put together for that. Yeah, we're ignoring half of what goes on just watching your backgrounds.
Yeah, this one has got a lot going on today.
Yeah. Not as creepy as last week though.
Dinosaur. Kevin, can you do a dinosaur one? I don't remember seeing dinosaurs.
I feel like there's been dinosaurs.
Yeah,
What's
I think
that?
there were dinosaurs one time.
I think there were dinosaur. I think
I might have missed it.
we have a green screen, and
wow.
sometimes Kevin wears a green shirt just so that
He's a head, just a head.
And so he's just a floating head.
Yeah. There are several people at work that enjoy doing that. Because we send green screen. Well, we have sent green screens home with anybody that's asked for them.
You just paint a wall green and make it a green screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've done that in the office. We have three conference rooms that are painted chroma key green, which is not the most beautiful color just to have hanging out on a wall. I mean, it's fine. It's fine, but it's a lot of green for a wall. But we do it well because it makes it so there's like no, even with really good, well stretched out fabric, there's sometimes little creases. But if you paint the wall, a fairly smooth wall, it turns out pretty good.
My back still hurts from diving in the pool yesterday.
Where'd you go swimming?
There's a public pool on Truman and Benton.
It was there were 3 of us went together and there were literally 3 other people there.
Well, if you take out the lifeguards, I don't even know if there were.
No, I thought there were 3 kids that weren't lifeguard. I saw.
Oh, yeah. I think one of them was.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's the one that said hello to me when I came in.
Yeah, my forehead's a little pink.
Yeah, we had the entire, they do it in 2-hour shifts so they can sanitize in between. So we went from noon to 2. And yeah, there were literally 3 other people there that weren't employees. So we had this huge pool tour, and it's a beautiful pool.
It is. It's really nice.
So, yeah.
I've been going to the Y swimming, and for someone with immune disorder, but I check the schedules because if the swim team's not there, it's pretty empty. So I just check the swim team schedule and go when they're not.
Is that indoor?
That's a nice Y. It's a really nice Y up there.
I vary between Platte City, Parkville, and Northtown, depending on which one's busy. I go to the others.
They all indoor pools?
Yes, they are all indoor, which for someone with my skin cancer is better.
Yeah, I needed some sun though. I feel like I
did too.
Was lacking.
Yeah, I have not.
But it was funny because it stormed all morning, so it was like, well, hell, should we go? It's been storming all morning, and by noon it was like it never happened, and it was 1,000 degrees, so worked out. We're gonna go back today at 2:30, I guess.
Oh, are we? Well, I didn't hear that.
Well, Angie just texted me earlier because I remember I was supposed to go to my great aunt's today for lunch, and then I thought, you know what? It's going to be my one family who doesn't believe in masks, and she's 15 years old, and it's at her house, so I'm guessing her kids probably
won't wear masks.
Do with it, and I'm like, you know, I've been out and about enough that I'm not comfortable having lunch in a house with people that don't wear masks and my 87-year-old aunt, you know, so I canceled. So.
Yeah, I'm hanging out with Joe this afternoon. I said I'm hanging out with Joe this afternoon. I was kidding.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Gary went and donated blood at the Red Cross this time.
Mhm.
And because community blood still, they have a lot more restrictions on where you can travel. And
Mhm.
Red Cross is doing an antigen test.
Yeah.
So he has been able to find out that he definitely has not had COVID.
Yeah, I did that back in end of July, I want to say. I donated with Red Cross to see if I had them and had antibodies, and they were like, nope, you don't. So I don't know. It would almost, I don't know if it would be a relief to have have antibodies and know that you'd had it and were asymptomatic. But they were saying what they last. I think the newest thing I said is like, or the newest thing I read said 4 months maybe that they last.
Well, that's another thing. Those antibodies, I don't think they always last the same in different people. That's probably typical. But
Well, because I was thinking if I did have antibodies, that I would be willing to do the plasma,
yeah,
stuff. So
My sister was on a cruise the first week of February. And she got very sick the last day of the cruise. And she was very sick for a long time afterward, but they never tested her. I mean, it was early February. And then months later, she had an antibody test and it was negative, but it was at least 4 months later. So it's very possible that her symptoms were like COVID symptoms.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think it was here sooner than they kind of.
And I picked her up from the airport when she came home.
Yikes.
And I, rode in the closed-in car with her, but I never got sick.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, on some level, I feel like, I've, been around, well, I don't know people that much without masks and stuff, but it's just so hard to know.
Are they at the pool where they wearing masks?
Oh gosh, it's time to close the room. Where's Guy?
Hi, Sally.
Is she on the page?
No, she's listening to us on Facebook Live.
Oh.
Joshua Hyde just posted about this charity and I can't find it.
On Facebook?
Yeah.
Everybody coming back, everybody on their way back. Welcome back to the main room. You are now back in the club. Mute yourself. Sarah, talking to you.
Ah!
All right. Welcome back. Hello. We're going to keep on keeping on. David's ready to play some more tunes for us. He's all tuned up. He's got his beautiful background behind him. He's looking good. He's got his hat on. He's got his guitar on. He's ready to go. We ready to hear some more music? David, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this thing. Everybody, welcome back, David Hakan.
So sometimes I just want to shake people and slap them upside the head and say, what part of love thy neighbor don't you understand? But of course that doesn't do any good. So I wrote a gentle song instead. I read the news today, my thoughts are so ugly. My friends and I look at life, and we all agree. But many voices don't, I try to blame. propaganda. But the truth is, we all live in America. Oh, we all live in America. It's so easy to judge, call someone mean-spirited. What would it look like across the table, breaking bread? I'm so sure of my choices, I join the hysteria. But the truth is, we all live in America. Oh, we all live in America. We walk in our bubble, we try to make ends meet. Our cultures rarely collide. We like things real neat, but our kids all wish on a star in their pajamas. For the truth is, we all live in America. Oh, we all live in America. We love the comfort food that we were raised on. Tostados, lasagna, sauerkraut, or wontons. We can play strings and brass and woodwinds in an orchestra. For the truth is, we all live in America. Oh, we all live in America. In every city and town, every neighborhood party, every holy day, every county fair jubilee, we all love our apple pie and Our Lady of Liberty. And hearing different voices is what it truly means to be free. We all live in America. Oh, we all live in America.
All right. Thank you, David. Thank you. I feel like maybe you picked some songs intentionally for this morning. I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it there. Let everybody sit in that for a little bit. Okay. So our featured speaker for this morning is Dr. Garrett Merriam. He's a PhD in philosophy from Rice University and currently teaches at California State University in Sacramento. His principal focus is in ethics, but has a long-standing interest in philosophy of religion and existentialism. Is that the word? Oh, no. Today, Garrett is here to discuss the topic of faith in a secular world or from a secular worldview. The title of his talk is Life, Death, and Secular Faith. Excuse me for my introduction. Garrett, are you ready to take this away? All right, indeed. We're going to have a little time. We got some time for a presentation, and I think Garrett's going to take some Q&A afterwards. So if you have some questions, feel free to throw them in the chat over to the side, and we'll leave some time afterwards for some questions. Garrett, take it away.
Okay. Let me start by saying thank you to everyone for showing up, and in particular, of course, to David for the music. It's been a really great way to sort of orient and to feel a connection to actual living creative people. A Guy, of course, for hosting, Will for the really nice science talk, and Jay for being my point of contact, the person who got me in touch with everyone. I used to live in the Midwest, and I wanted to go out there and speak to you all in person before I moved back to California. And then when I moved back to California, it sort of seemed like that was just a missed opportunity. So I suppose one of the fringe benefits of locking down due to the pandemic is you all went online, which made it possible for me to come and talk to you. So thank you very much for the invite, and I hope I make it worth your while. A couple of quick things about what I present before I actually present it. First off, if the title didn't make it clear, I am going to be talking here about death, and this obviously can be a sensitive and heavy topic. So I just want to brace everyone. If anyone has maybe recently suffered a loss or is perhaps anticipating a loss in the near future, it's possible that this might get a little personal. Obviously, I'm not meaning to step on anyone's toes or bring them into a position where they're dealing with something painful or difficult, but be forewarned that I'm going to ask you to go there. And then also, I don't normally do what I'm about to do. I normally like to have some visuals. Unfortunately, unlike Will, I do not have a daughter that was able to put up some nice graphics for me. But I got to writing, and again, normally I like to ad-lib a little bit, kind of like I'm doing right now, where I just have sort of a rough outline and I shoot from the hip as I go. It's more natural style. But as I got to writing this material, I found I got kind of drawn into the prose, and I really sort of enjoyed the way I was putting things down. Now, maybe it's going to come across as horribly pretentious. I really don't know. This is the first time most of this material is being put out into the world. But I like what I've written here, so I'm actually just going to read it straight up while you all look at my face, which, you know, I'm not the most comfortable with in the world, but but rather than spending time on visuals, I decided to put more time into the actual text. So time will tell if that was a worthwhile decision. Okay, so with the preface aside, let's turn to the meat of the matter. I want to start with some points that I suspect most of you, probably maybe not all, but at least most of you will agree with, and hence I'm not really going to argue for. First off, that there is no afterlife. There's no heaven, no hell, no purgatory, no reincarnation. This life is the only one that we have. We're finite, mortal beings. We exist in time and for a rather short time at that. Once we're gone, we are gone for good. Time will march onwards without us, and before long, we will be forgotten. Everything that we build, everything that we contribute to the future will be undone, devoured by the teeth of time. Not only will every one of us die, everything that we invest our lives into and everyone that we love will die too. This is why it's a bad idea to invite philosophers to your Sunday morning get-togethers, by the way, because we bum people out. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I gave you the heads up. So now to shift to things which I think might require a little bit more convincing. I said that all kind of might bum you out, but I don't think it should bum you out. To the contrary, as challenging as it can be to talk openly and honestly about our mortality, I think the fact that we are finite and mortal is precisely the precondition that makes our lives meaningful and that makes the things that we love precious. The fact that we will die is not a cause for sorrow, but rather a call for affirmation, a reveille that compels us to relish our lives and the people within them while we can. And to see why this is, I want to start off by doing some quick armchair anthropology. Trying to come to terms with our mortality is a preoccupation that likely predates the human race. Even before the advent of language, our ancestors became aware of the fact that they will die, and that anticipation of that eventual fate gave shape to early human cultures. We developed funeral rites to try to reclaim a measure of power back from death. We memorialize the departed and honor our ancestors, not for their sake, because if they were capable of caring, such memorials wouldn't be necessary in the first place, but for the sake of those who remained and for the sake of those yet to be born. Ritual, tradition, legacy, culture itself all exist, if not so much to cheat death, then at least to put the next round on death's tab. Now, some psychologists and anthropologists speculate that the struggle to cope with our mortality is the genesis of all religion. Anyone who can help us make sense of death is a person with tremendous social power. whomever can tell us why we die, can give us the courage to face death and the will to sacrifice our lives. Not for nothing that in nearly every culture around the world, it is religious figures that conduct funeral rites. So it shouldn't surprise us then that two common themes develop as religions mature. The first is a belief in an afterlife, and the second is the invocation of faith. Belief in an afterlife is one of the most direct salves to the sting of death. Do not cry, do not weep, for your loved one is not really dead. They have just moved on to a better place, and you will join them someday. And the birth of religion in turn gives birth to skepticism. Why should we believe that our loved ones live on when the pain of our grief is so profound, so much more real? This is where the invocation of faith comes in. Trust me, says the shaman, the rabbi, the priest, the imam. And if you do not trust me, trust the ancient scriptures. And if you do not trust the scriptures, trust the spirits, trust the ancestors, trust in God. So that's the narrative. Religion becomes a social force because it quelled our fear of death by commanding our faith in an afterlife. Now, many religious skeptics find this narrative rather contemptible. They view it as dishonest at best and cruel at worst, a tool for social control wielded by unscrupulous people used to deprive the vulnerable of their autonomy. There is certainly something to be said for such a cynical reading of this narrative. But often, I think this cynicism inspires an overreaction. Not only is the narrative thrown out, but all the elements of the narrative are thrown out along with it. Death is not a problem to be dealt with. It's a mere biological fact, something that has no greater significance than digestion. This is the answer to the problem of death offered by the ancient Roman school of thought known as Stoicism. Death is not a problem, according to the Stoics. It's merely a fact to be accepted. Our bodies are just matter, no different than any other matter in the universe. And since energy is never created nor destroyed, but merely transformed, we should not see our deaths as a cessation, but rather as a transformation. As the Stoic Epictetus puts this point, quote, "Yes, you will cease to be who you are, but you will become something else of which the universe then has need." Faith also needs to go, the skeptic says. This alleged solution to the problem of death is irrational, even dangerous. To have faith is to believe in the absence of evidence. This is epistemological malpractice and should be avoided at all costs on this standard skeptic way of thinking. Friedrich Nietzsche captures this attitude with characteristic incisiveness when he says, quote, "A casual stroll through the lunatic asylum shows that faith proves nothing." I want to push back on both of these reactions, not from a religious perspective, but from a purely secular one. Rejecting the belief in eternal life does not absolve us of the need to reconcile ourselves to death. Stoic detachment comes at too great a cost to the things that make life worth living in the first place. And while religious uses of faith have been detrimental to human well-being in myriad ways, there are other conceptions of faith which are both available and useful from a secular perspective. To see how this can be, let's consider a conception of faith presented by the Danish existentialist Søren Kierkegaard. While he was himself profoundly religious, Kierkegaard rejected the conception of faith that dominated Christian thought in his day, which I've been referring to above. Faith for Kierkegaard is not primarily an epistemic mode. It's not a means that we use to come to know things or believe things. Rather, Kierkegaard thought that we should consider faith a way to understand commitment in the face of uncertainty. Kierkegaard's book, Fear and Trembling, uses the story of Abraham and Isaac as a lens through which we can view our own lives. On Kierkegaard's reading of the Old Testament story, Abraham is not some mindless automaton who dogmatically agrees to murder his son because he's told to. Such a character would have no humanity in him at all. And it can be tempting, I think, for religious skeptics to read Abraham that way, because then we can distance ourselves from him. You can see him as an inhuman monster that we don't have to reflect on in order to see what we have in common with. But to do so, I think, is to ignore the fact that Abraham very clearly loves his son Isaac and cannot understand why God would command him to do such a terrible thing. For 3 days, he has to walk with his son across the desert, racked with doubt and uncertainty about what to do. It is this act of wrestling with that doubt that so fascinates Kierkegaard, precisely because it's a metaphor for what we all have to go through. We all have to overcome our fears and our doubts and make decisions to act in the face of uncertainty. It's only when we've worked through that fear that we're ready to make what Kierkegaard calls the leap of faith. Kierkegaard coined that now famous phrase. Actually, strictly speaking, the original phrase was the leap to faith, but apparently it got mistranslated, I guess, in the original English version, and that mistake is sort of proven resilient. But regardless of what the phrase is, skeptics are often critical of the idea of a leap of faith because they presume it is simply a matter of blind obedience, thoughtless confidence that God will take care of true believers. But that's not what Kierkegaard means at all. In fact, Kierkegaard was viciously critical of his fellow Christians for thinking of faith as automatic, as an entitlement, a selfish comfort that made their lives happier. Kierkegaard actually joined the Atheist League of Copenhagen to protest their complacency. He thought most Christians loved God simply because of what he could do for them, rather than for what he required of them. Faith is not a comfort for Abraham. It is a horrible burden. It would have been much easier for him if he could have just abandoned his faith and abandoned his doubt, except the solace of certainty that he was doing the right thing by not killing his son. Faith, as I say, for Kierkegaard, is not so much about belief, so much as it's about commitment. And doubt is an essential ingredient for a real, genuine commitment. If there were no doubt, it wouldn't be a leap. It would simply be a walk in the park, as it were. It requires nothing of you to act upon certainty. No struggle, no risk, no sacrifice. A leap, by contrast, is an act of courage. And you have no reason to think God will catch you. God might not even exist, Kierkegaard says. And if he does exist, he may choose not to save you. Yet, in spite of this uncertainty, you should take the leap anyway. That requires tremendous courage, a willingness to sacrifice your own soul because you've committed yourself to something greater than your own selfish, petty desires for comfort, for salvation, for certainty. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand what I find attractive here. I condemn Abraham, and I disagree with Kierkegaard's praise of him as a knight of faith. The value of this story for me is not as religious instruction, but rather as existential allegory. Because the story of Abraham and Isaac is not simply a story about a man doing what he's been told to do. Rather, it's very much a story about the virtue of doubt and how that doubt conditions all of our lives. To see why this is, let's set Abraham aside for a moment and consider a sort of more quotidian doubt, one that I suspect a lot of people here have had some experience with at some point in their lives. Should I ask that person out on a date? Date with them could be exciting. We seem to get along, be nice to share a meal, have a conversation, get to know them better. But what if they say no? What if the signals that I'm assuming are mutual interest is instead just them being polite? It would be embarrassing to put them in a position where they would have to turn me down, and the rejection would be a painful blow to my sense of self-worth. So, should I take the leap or not? Let's say I do. Let's say the date goes well, and it leads to another, which leads to another. And pretty soon, a relationship evolves. And with that relationship comes other doubts. Do I really want something serious right now? Am I good enough for my partner? Am I worthy and deserving of them? Can I trust them to stay faithful? Should we get married? Do we want to have kids? All these questions press themselves on us because they call for decisions that must be made in the face of uncertainty. We have no way of knowing if the relationship will work out. It's not even clear what it means for a relationship to work out. Will we look back and regret the decisions we made? Will we think that the time we've spent on this person was ultimately a waste? Will we wish that we'd fought harder to make things work? Nearly everyone has to navigate this uncertainty, and Kierkegaard was no exception. He actually called off an engagement to a very lovely woman because he couldn't reconcile his doubts over the relationship. It's this kind of challenge that made him famously proclaim that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. So let's say you get married. Now, when you're young, the fairy tales tell us that this is a happy ending. But even though it may be happy, it's not an ending. Relationships begin in a number of ways, but there's only two ways that they end. Someone leaves or someone dies. And regardless of which of the two ways a relationship ends, regardless of all the uncertainties that beset that relationship, when all is said and done, there is only one guarantee, and that is that it will end in tears. When you look at it that way, it can be hard to see why anyone would want to be in a relationship at all. How can we commit ourselves to something? How can we pour so much time and effort into something when the only certainty it provides for us is that it's destined for tragedy? Better, perhaps, to invest our lives in something else, something other than love. Maybe we could, like Kierkegaard, break off our romantic relationships and commit ourselves to a creative project. Or if philosophy and art don't do it for you, maybe you could start a business or run for office or go back to school. But none of these strategies avoid the problem of uncertainty. Maybe you'll put everything you have into pursuing your dream and still fail. Maybe you misjudge the obstacles in your path, or perhaps you're just the victim of bad luck. On the other hand, maybe you will succeed beyond your wildest dreams and become a billionaire industrialist or a world-renowned artist or the greatest president in history. Is that what a happy ending means? Of course not. Because while relationships may end in one of two ways, a life can only end in one. And no matter how enduring the legacy we leave behind is, sooner or later, it will be plowed under, devoured, and forgotten. On the scale of the universe, there is no difference between Alexander the Great and the nameless peasants who died on the day he was born. How can we find meaning or purpose in this brief, ephemeral existence, given that sooner or later, everything we do will be undone by the march of time? Given the incredible size and scope of the universe, isn't it hubristic to suggest that our existence has any more significance than that of an ant whose death goes unnoticed by all while the stars spin indifferently onward? How can we commit ourselves to living a life, any kind of life, that will ultimately amount to nothing? Now, this is where the orthodox religious thinker chimes in, right? And says it's only through eternal life that we can be saved from nihilism. If the source of our existential dread is our eventual annihilation, then surely the antidote to that dread must be embracing the conviction that we will, in fact, transcend death, that death is but an illusion. But such a denial of death drowns the baby with the bathwater. If I'm destined to live life eternal, then it doesn't matter whether I fall in love or not, marry or not, have children or not. If when I shuffle loose this mortal coil, I will unite with God in paradise forever, then what possible difference does it make how I spend my time here on earth? Just so long as I ascend to heaven, either by works or by grace, then it doesn't matter if I write a great novel, travel the world, appreciate Shakespeare, learn a foreign language, or walk on the moon. If what we want for our decisions, for our endeavors, our successes and failures, if we want those things to matter, then they cannot be outshined by the after party. If what we want is meaning, then we can't just go out the way we came in. If our true life is eternal, then all of us are simply visiting this world. This world is not our home. And thus, we cannot take ownership of the things within it. And they cannot provide us with the meaning that we seek. All of the answers are in the back of the book. So this brings us back to the core problem. How can we have meaningful lives in the face of our eventual annihilation? This is where I think we need a rehabilitated notion of faith to help us make sense of our own finitude. This conception of faith takes as its point of departure Kierkegaard's view that faith is not a state of knowing or believing, but rather an act of committing ourselves to something beyond ourselves. This is the essence of what philosopher Martin Hogland calls secular faith. To have secular faith, in Hogland's view, means to recognize the fragility of everything that we care about and devoting ourselves to it nonetheless. This is a faith that is bounded by time and oriented towards the worldly and corporeal. To care for something in this world, a project, a cause, or another person, is to recognize that that which we care about is vulnerable to time, that time may take it away before we are done with it, and that time will eventually eradicate us. If the things we commit ourselves to were invulnerable to time, then they would not require our attention and our maintenance. They would have no need of us or our engagement with them. They would be just fine without us in perpetuity. It is only because it will end that the things of this world can command us to pour ourselves into them. In the words of the poet Mary Oliver, to live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing that your own life depends on it, and when it comes time to let it go, to let it go. We all have to make the leap of faith, in Kierkegaard's sense of the term, but it can be a leap of secular rather than religious faith. We can decide to commit ourselves to something greater than ourselves, not in the absence of doubt, but rather because of it, because we don't know how things will play out, or whether anything will ultimately make any difference to anyone at all. That decision takes courage, it takes effort, and it takes sacrifice. In closing, I want to read one of my favorite quotes from Paul Bowles' novel, The Sheltering Sky. Here goes. Because we do not know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. Yet everything happens only a certain number of times, and a very small number, really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood, an afternoon that is so deeply a part of your being that you cannot even conceive of your life without it? Perhaps 4 or 5 times more? Perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20. And yet, it all seems so limitless. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read those words, it makes me want to savor every moonrise, every sunset, every day. We cannot do that if we sincerely believe that we will get as many moonrises and as many sunsets, as many days as we want. How could I relish the water if life really were an inexhaustible well? It's only because it's not limitless, and we know that it's not limitless, that we can truly drink it in and let it go. Secular faith can liberate us from the fear of death without delusion or denial. While a particular death may be a tragedy, our mortality is not. It's because we know we will die that we are empowered, indeed required, to love this short, ephemeral life and the fragile, vulnerable people within it. This one life is the only one you will ever have, and the people in it are the only ones you get to share it with. Cherish it and cherish them. Thank you all very much.
All right. How about a little wavy hands, round of applause for Garrett, Dr. Garrett Merriam. Thank you very much. That was a great talk, great presentation. Thank you very much. I was deep deep in thought throughout that talk. Very, very, very great. A lot of comments over here in the chat. No questions coming in just yet. I think people are in their heads at the moment. So let me ask you, because I'm thinking of faith in the sense that a lot of atheists just when I'll say when I think of religious faith, thinking of, like you said, belief without evidence, right? And we say we non-believers give believers a hard time because they don't have any reason to believe any of the things that they believe, and believers still do all the things that non-believers do. They still value things in life. They still value their family and their job, and they still work in politics to make the world a better place in their own eyes, and do all the things that we do, non-believers do. It seems like there's an incongruency amongst all people that we're here, and it's a finite amount of time, and it seems like none of us seem to know what to do in this sort of existential dread. And it seems like, so you're suggesting that this faith isn't just in the realm of religious folks, but that even non-believers need to embrace the idea of faith, that what we're doing is meaningful beyond ourselves. Is that true? Is that what you're saying?
More or less, yeah. I mean, I probably wouldn't say the word need. There are other ways you could do, of course. I mean, you could just embrace nihilism. You could just surrender the idea that life is meaningful, that we ought to love people and care for them and commit ourselves to them. That's certainly something that gets a lot of talk. I'm not sure how often it's actually put into practice. I'm not sure if it's a live option, as it were, but it's at least a theoretical one that can be put on the table. So I would dial it back next, and I wouldn't say you need to embrace secular faith, but rather secular faith is an option, both as an attitude towards life and as a way of understanding our own mortality.
Right. Okay, well, here that prompted some questions here. Now I got people disagreeing with me, so they can that'll get some questions, and that's good. That was kind of what I was thinking. I'll just play the dummy here. The faithful believe the afterlife had to be earned, and to skip forward would be to guarantee further pain. If I recall correctly, the Bible calls it. Okay, David's asking about the question of intentional death or suicide. Any thoughts on that? You can see this question here.
Yeah, and I think actually David had an earlier question, right? He said, "What if Kierkegaard leaps to the wrong god? He's just making Vishnu matter and matter." Which that's sort of a common sort of criticism to any sort of leap of faith, right? You can see why you're going to want a rational grounding to know that you're going to the right God, because if you choose the wrong one, you're damned. But again, I don't so much want to speak up for Kierkegaard, but for my purposes of Kierkegaard, we can ask the same question: what if we marry the wrong person, right? What if there's someone in our life that if we chose to marry that person, we would have a wonderful, fulfilling, and exciting life and a great partnership and a wonderful family, but instead we marry this other person and it doesn't work out quite so well. I mean, that is a challenging sort of problem that you have to deal with regardless of whether or not you believe in God. So while I think to religious believers, how do you know you're worshiping the right God is a legit challenge, but I think they can push back and say that this is not the form of that challenge is not unique to the religious. It is a form that everyone has to deal with. And if we do think that secular faith is a way of making sense of life and those life decisions about who to marry and so forth, then I think a religious person could at least try to leverage that as a way to saying that we shouldn't object to religious faith either. But that brings in sort of some of the other objections that I have to the religious faith.
What do you think? What do you think of this notion that faith that believers are accused of believing in things unseen and not having answers and just going for it anyway, and then shot back at the non-believer? Will you do the same thing when you put your faith in science, or you put your faith in some sort of political ideology that you haven't seen laid out, and you don't know what the end game is going to be? That you're doing the same thing essentially. You don't have the evidence there yet to support it, and yet you're going forward with this plan. like a religious person does. They don't know what comes in the afterlife, yet they're devoting their entire life toward this game plan of getting to, their idea of heaven, which they don't completely have an idea of.
Right. I mean, I think there is a weak version of that argument and a stronger version of that argument. I'm going to sort of dismiss the weak version quickly. Yeah. So you sometimes hear the idea that science is based on faith or something like that too. But when that argument's made, it's often used in that epistemic sense that faith is a tool for coming to know things. You assume that the sun's going to rise tomorrow, that the laws of physics aren't just going to invert tomorrow, and that kind of assumption is a sort of leap of faith. I'm not particularly moved by that sort of argument because, and again, this isn't unique to me. This is a sort of standard reply to that, and that's that science doesn't sort of operate so much on that assumption, so much as it has no other alternative to go forward with. If the laws of physics decide to just change tomorrow, then all is for naught. There's no point in doing science anyway. So, given that we have to make a decision one way or the other, we are compelled to make a decision to investigate the world and try to make sense of it. So that first version, again, which views faith as a form of knowledge or a precondition for knowledge or something like that, I'm not particularly compelled by. But I think the stronger version, and this does tie in with the sort of thing I'm talking about, is something along the lines of, you make the leap of faith that science is something that's worth pursuing in the first place. That the knowledge of the universe that you get if you are successful, even assuming you are successful, is somehow existentially significant and makes the time you spend on it a time well spent. And I think that is true and that is correct. And in that sense, both secular and religious people have to make decisions about what they're going to do with their lives in the face of uncertainty about not knowing whether or not it's going to be meaningful. That's true whether or not you're committing yourself to God or whether you're committing yourself to science or a creative project or whatever. At the same time, though, again, I think at least many versions of religious faith specifically pull us away from the things of this world. As I sort of suggested, it's implied by a lot of religious doctrines that have an afterlife that we shouldn't particularly care if someone we love dies because, if they go to heaven, that's the best thing that can ever happen to them, right? They're leaving behind this world, which sucks. And this brings us back to David's point about suicide, right? The afterlife is going to be so much more awesome. Why not just cut to the chase? But what I think a secular faith does is the exact opposite. It doesn't detach us from the things of this world. It doesn't get us to stop caring. Rather, it compels us to care profoundly, precisely because this is the only life that we have. And so, this is a blunt way of putting it, but on this way, we shouldn't commit suicide, at least except in perhaps extreme circumstances, because because we don't know what will happen. No matter how bad things might get now, we don't know how much joy or wonder or awesomeness the future might hold. Again, maybe it's different if you have a terminal illness or something like that, but again, that's the exception, not the rule.
Right. Fantastic. All right, that's the questions I can see there. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here, Garrett. If you have any more links that you can give to us for any of your work that we can post up in our private group, this is a topic that I know is of interest to a lot of our regulars here at Oasis in Kansas City. So if you have anything that you'd like to send to us, any of your published work or anything else that you're working on that you'd like to send to us, please do. Oh, JJ had a question. I'm sorry, JJ. Here, JJ's got a question. I want to get it in. What kind of celebration of life after you passed away would you be pleased with for yourself? I think that's specifically directed at you.
Right. Yeah. No. It's a good one. It's really weird because I've actually sort of been in some ways thinking about this a lot since the shutdown. One of the incredibly sort of challenging things right now is that a lot of people are dying. And we can't go through the typical sort of funeral rites. We can't, or at least we oughtn't, to get together for a massive celebration, whether that be religious or secular, because that can spread the disease and lead people to dying. So it's in some ways, in peculiar ways, quite a testimony to your life if people are willing to put their own lives on the line in order to celebrate the passing of yours. It's sort of flattering, but I, for one at least, would not want the people that I love to put themselves in danger just to wish me a good send-off. Now, I'm obviously, I am not sick to my knowledge. I'm not intending or anticipating dying during this pandemic or anytime in the near future. My answer to that question might change if that were the case. But something that I have thought a lot about and continually revise as far as memorials when I die is concerned, actually, has to do with music. I have a short and hopefully not self-indulgent playlist of songs that I hope the people who I love and who want to think about me will listen to together and think of me. And if they choose to then listen to those songs at another point in the future, they'll think of me again. And even though they're not my songs, I'm not a musician. I don't write songs. These are songs that mean a lot to me, and that I think about when I think about the meaning of life and the significance of my death. And so if I can and sort of imbue my spirit into those songs, and that can hopefully be something of a gift that people give to me retrospectively by associating me with such works of beauty.
Fantastic. All right, well, that's I think a lot of people agree with you there. There's something very specific about music that there's something innate in us that there's a connection there that I think there's a reason we hear it at a lot of funerals and celebrations of life and all sorts. Music is always a part of that. We did get another question, though, from Paul. Is it appropriate to call a belief that the sun will rise tomorrow faith? The distinction, is there a distinction between that and inductive reasoning?
Yeah. This is a good question. It's not really directly related to what I was talking about, but it's tangentially related. I would say I think that's a bad use of the term faith. I see why people do that. I mean, I agree here with David Hume that we can never have certainty that the sun will rise tomorrow. As far as we know, something will prevent it from happening. So we shouldn't pretend that we know it with certainty. But if all someone means by faith is something we believe without certainty, then faith sort of becomes very, very diluted. The vast majority of the things that we believe become matters of faith, even incredibly quotidian ones. As I drink my glass of water here, I have faith that it won't poison me. I mean, again, there's a sense in which that makes sense, but I think most people want to reserve the word faith for something a little bit more significant. Again, religious or secular, it seems like faith should be a matter of something that we that has a profound meaning to us, not simply a background assumption that we make about the world continuing to operate the way we've come to believe it operates. So I would want to reserve the word faith not for just something we believe without certainty, even if we're talking about in the epistemic sense, and say that it has to be a belief that somehow informs our sense of purpose and meaning in life.
Good distinction. There's definitions when you get into this stuff as a philosophy PhD. Definitions are hard to come by and hard to agree upon. So yeah, this is that's a great example of the distinction there. Okay, I think we're going to end it there. If you're open to more questions, if you're willing to stick around for a few minutes afterwards, then maybe field a few more questions. We're going to hear one more song. So we'll give a round of applause here to Garrett, Merriam, for being here. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much. And as all of you know, we're going to move into our last song here from David Hakan. And there he is, got his guitar on. Very good, very good. As all of you know, we are a 501c3 here at Kansas City Oasis, so we are 100% volunteer run. We run based on your help and your donations. So if you have the means, you have the ability, please head over to kansascityoasis.org/donate. Give what you are able. I'm going to put up a link to David Hakan's music here in the chat. If you want to go over there and check out what he has to offer, we're going to hear from him one more time, and then I'll be back with some closing announcements. Take it away, David.
Well, when I first came to Oasis and read people are more important than beliefs, I knew I was in the right place. So this song I wrote wondering if I could write something that people would feel good about singing along with, regardless of their beliefs, even Unitarians. It's called For This World. No one looks a stranger dressed in a smile, though to learn their ways takes a little while. There's a gospel in shaking hands, building bridges across different lands. this world, Milky Way above. For this world, say a little prayer. For this world, we all share. As the seas begin to rise and the ice packs melt away, we must simplify our lives, a lighter footprints every day. For this world we all love, for this world, Milky Way above. For this world, say a little prayer. For this world, we all share. The mean and proud tend to rule, but our silence is their greatest tool. We can speak with one voice. Time's coming near to make a choice. For this world we all love. For this world, Milky Way above. For this world, say a little prayer. For this world, we all share. We all lift our eyes now and then, speak to someone unseen once again. When a bitter past lingers there, even a sigh becomes a prayer. For this world we all love. For this world, Milky Way above. For this world, say a little prayer. For this world, we all share.
All right, all right, all right. Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. All right, some closing announcements here. Want to thank everybody. Obviously, thank you to our main speaker, Dr. Garrett Merriam, Life, Death, and Secular Faith. What a great presentation. Everybody check out Dr. Merriam's YouTube channel. He linked it there in the chat. You can check out what he's been working on there on his YouTube channel. Thanks to Will Manning for being our community moment and bringing us a great topic there. He's going to link some more information on our private page. So if you're in there, check it out. If you're not in the private page, get a hold of somebody here. If you want to get involved in there, all of us involved are on the Facebook. We have a private page here. All of us get in there and talk to each other. If you want to join us there. Thanks again to David Hakan for bringing his great musical talents. There's a link also in the chat to David's own private music there, to his own work. If you want to check that out, we're looking forward to having him again. Last announcements, I just want to bring some more attention to, if you can help out with the, what are we calling it? The, the meal train, that's what it's called. The meal train here for the, for JJ's crew, for the, for Ariston and JJ's crew. If you can help out with a meal for them, head over to the announcements tab under the private page. And check out the calendar there, see if you can put together a meal for them. That would really appreciate it. And again, we're looking for more community moment speakers. If you've got anything you want to share as a community moment speaker, you have plenty of time to get it together, but we'd love to hear from you. And community groups are getting back together in the upcoming weeks. So if you want to be a host for a community group, please check that out. And with that being said, enjoy the rest of your weekend and take care of each other and take care of yourselves because you deserve it. You really, really do. We'll see you next week. Love you guys.